welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Ral, and today I wanted to feature one of my really early builds, one of my oldest surviving builds. So, if you're looking at the camera and you see this is definitely an older one. Quality just isn't there compared to my modern builds, but we all had to start somewhere. But this is definitely not one of the first ones I built. Like I said, I started building models when I was about 8 years old. This was before a driver's license. For me, built it in about 88, 89 when this kit came out, because this is the 66 Shelby GT350 kit, which I believe came out in 89, the white boxed one. I think it came out once before as the black, molded in black car with the gold stripes, the GT350H, which I did build one of those. Still have that build as well, but I built that one mostly stock. I'll feature that another time possibly. But this one I built back then too, and I built it as a custom hot rod, and I was reading a lot of Hot Rod magazine and a lot of those at that time, Carcraft and Hot Rod, so you can definitely see the influences from those magazines in this kit. I was always really proud of this kit. It was one of my better ones for the time. A lot of the ones that I built back then, they didn't survive. I'd rebuilt them or robbed them for parts. Matter of fact, this one was built robbing 2 of my previous builds, at least, so you can recognize some of the parts from those builds. But there's a lot of work and thought that went into this one, and I really enjoyed building it, and which is one of the reasons I kept it. But it's also a kit that I really enjoyed building no matter what. Definitely one of my favorites if you had to count how many times I've built this particular tool, this Revell Monogram Mustang. I've got a number of them in my collection. I'll show a bunch of them to you eventually. Even to this day, I have a hard time not picking one up. I probably have another 5 of them unbuilt. Especially the 65 version, the 65 Shelby that I featured already, one of those built up. I have 2 more of those. I have another rebuilder and another unbuilt kit, but that one was only issued the one time, and it never really came back out again stock. So when they started getting more involved in getting swap meets, when I'd find one of those, I'd pick one up. Now with eBay, you can find them all day long. Like I said, this is the 66 one, and I built a number of these as well. But it's just one of my favorite Mustangs, the Revell Monogram kits, even though they're 1/24 scale. I really enjoy them, and it's just one of my favorites. And even a lot of those kits at that time, stock muscle cars. But like this one was definitely custom, and one I did back then, and I really enjoyed building it. It was just a pleasure to not necessarily getting everything to fit, but just a pleasure to build and modify, and I had a good time with it. When I look back at it, that's just what I remember, is how much fun I had building this car and building models back then. And that's what it was all about, was having fun, having a good old time. And that's what this reminds me of. And I don't know why I've never rebuilt this one. It was one of my customs, and definitely not up to my standards. One of the things I'd really like to do is, get rid of the silver paint and bare metal foil it, or even just polish the paint. But part of the fun for me is looking at this kit and just remembering building it and what I did to it. And one of the things I distinctly remember was trying not to mess up these wheel flares. If you notice, they're actually flared out. And I remember using a lighter, just holding a lighter close to the plastic, holding it sideways, and using the lighter to warm up the plastic, and taking a pen and just rolling it to help push it out. Push it out with my fingers, and using a pen to roll it to flare the fender flare out. So you can see it right there, kind of flared out. And then the big tires in the back. I mean, you'd think I actually built it before, the late 80s, with some of the, late 70s, early 80s stance to it, street machine stance to it. But, I've always just really smiled with this one. But, you get better as you build, too. So, I mean, I also look at it as like, okay, tried a few things, did a few things. This is also one of the first ones I actually airbrushed with my Badger 350 airbrush, a single stage, which I still have. I've actually got 4 airbrushes now, but that was my first one. And this one was painted using that, and it's just plain old black paint. And some of the mold lines weren't sanded out very well. Some were, some weren't. And then I put the Shelby scoops on the side and did a few other things. And you start recognizing some of the parts, like the Boss 429 hood scoop here from the 70 Boss 429. And I actually robbed the seats from this Boss 429 also. And that's where this rear spoiler came from. Other parts from the Boss, I think, well, that probably is it. I also robbed some parts from the 68 AMT Shelby GT500 kit. One of the mirrors are from that kit. The roll bar back there, I think, is from that kit. The spare tire, I believe, is from that kit. And also, if you can see in there, I put in the center console from that kit. And one of the things that make me laugh, if you can kind of see the dash there, you can see the wood grain and whatnot. But notice there's 2 tacks. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I wanted to put extra gauges up there, but 2 tacks, usually you don't have two tacks on the dash. Maybe one, you'll have an oil pressure gauge and temperature, vacuum gauge. But if you're racing, it's probably just the tack and oil pressure. But I was just having a good old time building this thing. As you can see, I jacked up the back, put some spacers here, which I think those are from the Boss kit. And I think the shocks in the back are from the Boss. The exhaust, though, I did drill a panel, the valance panel out, and run the exhaust through it. And you can see I took the bumper guards off, although it's just silver paint under there, it's not chrome. But I had removed those and put the exhaust through like the GTs. I thought that was a cool touch. And then another thing I had done is just had the front valance. You can see there, I had really cut that opening so there's no license plate. Did it kind of like the GT350R race cars, but not really. And then I added a front spoiler. I don't even remember where that came from, so I couldn't tell you. It probably is from the Boss, and I cut it down a little bit. I'm not really sure. You see the 80s influence in the wheels, and the front I had just cut down and lowered, just glued them in place. And then there's a good shot of the whole underside there. You can see the motor. I used the 289 headers, and I used the 289's oil pan. But that's about all I really used from the 289. Let's see if I can get the hood off here. There we go. So you see I even cut open the bottom of the hood there so that, you know, the hood scoop is actually functional. And I tried to follow the body lines in there. It's really not too bad of an effort for me being 14 years old, 15 years old when I built this, freshman in high school, maybe a sophomore, but I blacked out the engine compartment. But there is a 428. Now it's got the high-rise intake and the dual quads, and that whole motor is pretty much right from the AMT 68 GT500 kit. It's not truly correct for the model, but those parts are in that kit, and I like this motor. It's one of my favorite motors, even though it didn't really fit under the hood of that one. Even I'm surprised it fits under the hood of this one, but being a 1/25th scale model and a 1/24 scale body. But yeah, mixing and matching some of the components there, you know, the 289 headers and 289 oil pan and the 428 engine. But this would be a screamer if it was running around and driving today. But so I figured I would show it off, even though it's been polished and worn through, and you know, I could really use a redo. But you know, for nostalgia's sake on my part, I leave this one alone, and I can't believe it's one that I have not redone or rebuilt, or even attempted to do again. But it's just a lot of memories from building this kit back in the day, and I, you know, that to me just makes me smile, and that's why we build models, just to have fun, have a good time, and be creative. And I figured I would show you guys this one, see what you guys thought, see if any of you guys have had a model kit that you've held on to for 30 years or more. If you keep some of your old builds, or if you tear them apart and rebuild them, I'd love to hear that stuff. So comment, let me know, and I hope you enjoyed seeing my flashback. I'll show you some of the other ones I have that are just as old. I'll bounce around between new builds and older builds. because I've got a lot of build kits, as you can tell, that I've built over the years. But some of them, like, I really wouldn't take this to a show and show it off. Just I wanted to show you guys and just share with you some of my older memories and some of my older builds. I just laugh and enjoy, and I figured you guys would too. So those of you that subscribe, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for tuning in, and you guys, you have a wonderful day.